Hello everyone, thank you Stephen, and I too would like to acknowledge the original custodians of our land, the Gadigal people, the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to the elders both past and present, and also acknowledge the people of the 200 nationalities who live in our city, and thank Michael for his welcome. This is a very exciting day for us all. We're opening a beautifully restored building, and we're welcoming a new theatre to Sydney. This is going to be very important in terms of our city and in terms of our area. And I'd like to just start by giving you a little bit of the history. In 1884, the Woolloomooloo Baptist Church, outgrowing its original home on Lower Bourke Street, bought this land. An architect parishioner, John Stone, drew up the plans for the new church, and the Burton Street Tabernacle was completed in 1887. It was extended in 1892 and again in 1922, with major internal alterations carried out in 1948, and it remained a centre of worship for over 100 years. It was, of course, most famously associated with Arthur Stace, inspired by the words of Reverend John Ridley, who in one of his sermons said that he wished he could go out, and I quote, "shout eternity through the streets of Sydney." Stace took up his stick of chalk, and every day for the next 20 years, he roamed the streets of Sydney, inscribing the word eternity in perfect copycat. So if you want to try that yourself, we have chalkboards out in Kells Lane today where you can try and match Arthur's beautiful hand. The irony of all this, of course, is that there was some legislation in New South Wales Parliament just last week saying if anyone did any chalking graffiti, that they would have a very serious fine. I hope that legislation doesn't progress, because it would mean that Arthur Stace would have been in deep trouble. So it's said that Arthur Stace wrote this over 1 million times, and it became recognised as an emblem of Sydney. And so when we came to give this building its new name for its new life, we thought wonderful to call it a playhouse, and how terrific to call it Eternity Playhouse. So that's where we got the name from. The city bought the tabernacle in 2003. It needed extensive repairs, and following community consultation, we embarked on a thorough program of works. That included repairing the roof and laying new Welsh slate tiles to match the originals. And the very important work in that first stage was uncovering this stunning ceiling, this absolutely beautiful ceiling, unique in Sydney, and it had been covered up and plastered over. You know, terrible things were done to some of our fine buildings in the past, and I don't think we actually realised how extraordinary this ceiling was going to be until all that plaster was taken down, and you can see how beautifully it has all been restored. So that was stage 2, and that involved restoring the decorative timber ceiling, appointing the brickwork, and the general repairs, and that was a major piece of restoration. So then, in 2011, we began the work to transform the building into a 200-seat theatre. This involved converting the basement for a box office, cafe and bar and public facilities, creating a new backstage with dressing rooms, offices and performance facilities, and installing new foyers and new stairs and a lift to improve accessibility. So this very beautiful restored historic building has all the modern facilities of a new theatre. We further restored and preserved the building's heritage features, and we did what we do with all our projects. We made it more sustainable. It has energy efficient lighting, and Peter Tolkin's going to tell you a bit more about that, and solar panels, and it has rainwater collection and reuse. In fact, Peter will tell you more, but he'll also tell you about the interesting air conditioning and how the work we've done to address noise issues, because I know they're two issues that the noise particularly is a concern to local people. We've spent almost $8 million to restore and convert this building to a state-of-the-art theatre. It's going to be a joy for theatre goers, because while this is a really intimate theatre, it's also quite majestic and quite wonderful. So often when you go into a theatre, if it has a magic environment, it helps contribute to the magic of the whole experience. So we're just really thrilled with this. And we're also really pleased that the Darlinghurst Theatre Company is going to take up residency, and appropriately will be launching this new theatre with Arthur Miller's All My Sons, the play that launched Miller's own career. Darlinghurst Theatre staff are here today to help you feel welcome and answer your questions relating to plans for their inaugural season. And we're going to hear from Ben Terry to tell you about that. And we're going to hear from a very famous Australian actor, Nevin. But first of all, I'll get Peter Tolkin, the architect, to talk to you about how they created this wonderful space. So our next project for this area will be over the road, where we're going to renew Heffron Hall. It will become a new sustainable centre for cultural community use, providing multi-purpose community spaces and an improved out-of-school care for up to 30 children. It has a great design. It's going to be accessible and open to natural light as well as to the park, which has also had landscaping improvements. So we'll have this wonderful complex here for our community. So I'd like to thank the local community for being patient throughout the restoration of the tabernacle and the creation of this theatre. And I know you're going to take great pride in it. It's a very important part of your neighbourhood. I would also like to thank Light It Up Capital Campaign supporters, Arts New South Wales for their contribution towards the theatre's technical equipment, and the Darlinghurst Theatre Company's staff, past and present, who have consulted on the project since 2008. So this has been a work of years and a work of love, I have to say, to reach this point. I'd especially like to thank our project team, architects Tonkin, Zalaika, Greer, builders Kane Constructions, and from the City of Sydney, Senior Project Manager Samantha Carroll, and Senior Design Managers Marcia Morley and Matthew Taylor. You've done a magnificent job, thank you. So please thank them with me. Now I'd like to invite Peter Tonkin to come up and tell you a bit more about this wonderful building. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you all for coming. When I was at university, there was a slogan which was think locally, act globally. And I think that's almost been a mantra for the City Council, and also something that we've embodied in this building. That it was built in the 19th century as a local centre for a particular part of the community, flourished for nearly 100 years, and as the community changed, fell into disuse. And now has been reworked to accommodate another local institution, the Darlinghurst Theatre Company, who've been growing and growing, becoming increasingly important to the cultural life of this community and of the city generally. But also this building has a kind of global focus in terms not only of its sustainability, but in terms of keeping this cultural icon, this building, going for the next 100, 200 years. So that I think it's amazing to look at the way this society is embracing the reuse of buildings, giving them new uses instead of just knocking them down. So here we've done, as the Lord Mayor outlined, conserving the ceiling, conserving the old fake marble finish on the walls, replacing the stained glass windows which had been turned into kind of amber, bathroom glass in the 40s, and recreating these original Edwardian or late Victorian stained glass windows. And either side of them are sheets of glass, 30mm thick, to control not only the noise coming into the theatre so that it's quiet in here, but most importantly to control the noise that comes out of the theatre so that the theatre company won't be a nuisance to neighbouring residents. We have photovoltaics on the roof. Almost pioneering in Australia is the use of LED theatre lighting, so that we're chewing up a whole lot less power every night when there's a production on. There's a low energy air conditioning system that gradually wafts cool or warm air from under each seat, and it stays as a kind of blanket around the audience. And all of these things together mean that we're making less of an impact on the environment, as well as the huge energy saving in not demolishing this building and rebuilding it. It's been an incredible 4.5 years, I think, for our office, for everybody that's worked on it. Trying to squeeze 200 seats within the footprint of this building has been an extraordinarily difficult task, which I hope doesn't really show. Every so often there are, bits where you think, wow, that's a bit squeezy. But we work very hard to get this feeling of grandeur and excitement coming to the theatre, So not only will you wind up in this incredibly beautiful room, but as your whole journey from the street becomes a theatrical experience. And backstage, we've squeezed in a 3-story, is it 1, 2, 3, a story addition, all the required back of house and bits and pieces for operating a professional theatre and accommodating the theatre company within it. I'd especially like to thank the builders who worked so hard trying to undertake all of this work on such a constrained site without causing too much irritation to the neighbourhood. And I trust all of you will come back and become part of this new community that this theatre will represent for the people of Sydney. Thank you very much. I'd now like to introduce Glenn Terry, who's the Artistic Director of the Darlinghurst Theatre Company, to tell you about what's coming up.
Thanks to the vision, tenacity and creativity of the City of Sydney, the city now has a remarkable and extraordinary new theatre in the Eternity Playhouse. Darlinghurst Theatre Company is humbled and grateful for the extraordinary opportunity that it affords our company and theatre artists. At the very heart of our company is a firm belief that theatre should promote a democracy of ideas. We want our audiences to discover and experience the power and possibilities of live theatre, and for each of our productions to inspire reflection and thought about the world in which we live and our lives. Every Darlinghurst Theatre Company production brings together a new creative team of outstanding artists who present their unique artistic vision and perspective in theatre and life. And what we do is we offer artists the freedom to stage their own work and tell the stories that they want to tell. Since 2001, Darlinghurst Theatre Company has staged over 200 productions in collaboration with more than 1,000 professional artists at our theatre in Potts Point. Our new home, the Eternity Playhouse, will allow us to offer an exemplary, state-of-the-art and world-class facility and be able to grow our budgets to higher professional standards. That's the reason why we've moved. Since 2001, Darlinghurst Theatre Company has pushed towards this type of work. It's vital that we're able to sustain and support our artists in the way they deserve to be. The Eternity Playhouse offers our audience a unique theatre-going experience. It's up close, it's intimate, but it's also lush and spectacular. And our very first production at the Eternity Playhouse will be the modern classic All My Sons by Arthur Miller. And All My Sons is a play about truth and telling the truth. And as such, it's a very fitting opening to a new playhouse. Ultimately, theatre is about telling the truth. To tell the truth about the human condition and our existence is one of the primary roles of contemporary theatre, and indeed theatre throughout the ages. All My Sons features an outstanding cast led by director Ian Sinclair, and performances commence November 1. Get your tickets downstairs. Our upcoming 2014 season will soon be launched on October 9. It's going to include Australian plays, international plays and modern plays, so stay tuned. And please join our email list downstairs and hear more about that from Emma. There have been numerous people involved in the creation and the delivery of the Eternity Playhouse. Too many to mention here, however. I do want to say a few thank yous on behalf of myself and our company. But just prior to that, just to mention parking. Because we've done a deal with the Clover asked me to mention this because there's been some panic about the parking. We've done a deal with the Riley Street parking station. There's 400 spaces down there overnight. You can barely park your car if you must. So public transport's very easy around here, just to waylay some of the neighbour issues. Also, when we opened our theatre in Potts Point, the neighbours there were a bit suspicious too, but we've always been a theatre deeply involved in the community. We've generated some wonderful projects, including Milk Crate Theatre and Critical Stages, which tours all over Australia. We do pride ourselves on our connections with the community. Anyway, on to the thank yous. I'd especially like to thank Sam Carroll, Project Manager from the City of Sydney, who has the patience of the Dalai Lama and has been working on this playhouse since 2005. 4, sorry, I got my glasses on. Oh, goodness me. And thanks also to Tom Keeler, City of Sydney Projects Manager, who recently joined the project. A special thanks to Marcia Morley, that amazing architect from the City of Sydney, and to Beth Jewell, Community Liaison with the City of Sydney, and to Peter Cooper, the ever-patient Building Manager from the City of Sydney. And a very special thank you from Darlinghurst Theatre Company to those visionaries at Tonkin, Zulukai and Greer. In particular, Julie McKenzie, Jeremy Hughes and Peter Tonkin for their wonder-filled design. And a special thanks to Tony Goulden, theatre consultant for the Eternity Playhouse, who pushed many innovations here. Thanks to Rob Brewer, site manager extraordinaire from Kane, who bravely took this project on late in the piece. Also thanks to Claire Antonopoulos, Sam Stramandoli, sorry for murdering your name, Sam, Andrew Lee and Adam Bennett, also from Kane, who have stayed with this project. And thank you to Kane for engaging such A-grade builders and craftspeople, and that really shows. By the way, we're still finishing. We're still to move in quite a lot of equipment, so that this is a remarkable point in the build. And Darlinghurst Theatre Company is yet to move in over the next couple of weeks, and we'll need to finish some aspects. A special thank you to my brave Darlinghurst Theatre Company team, Elizabeth Jenkins, Gemma Coward, Emma Peel and Ashley Montague. And a special thank you to Darlinghurst Theatre Company Board of Directors, and a heartfelt thanks to our Darlinghurst Theatre Company Light It Up donors, who generously contributed towards the Eternity Playhouse and our fundraising campaign. Many thanks to Arts New South Wales, who contributed towards the technical equipment for the theatre, in particular this amazing grid. Thanks to Michelle Bell and City Events for organising today's event. And a special personal thank you to Olive, Marlo and Leonie for the home front support, my wonderful little family. And finally, thank you to Clover Moore and the City of Sydney for this incredible gift to the community. Darlinghurst Theatre Company is very much looking forward to sharing it with artists and the community for many years to come. I'd like to introduce, we're very privileged to have Robyn Nevin here today, and I did ask for someone who was a theatre luminary to not bless the theatre, but to push it on its way, as you would a ship, as it were. And we're very fortunate to have a theatre legend, an Australian theatre legend here today in Lord Mayor.
Privilege. Actors, writers, and all who serve the great purpose of theatre need spaces where they can play out their stories. This is a happy addition, a day for celebration indeed. When I was 11, I played Snow White on the stage of Hobart's Theatre Royal. That beautiful building is Australia's oldest theatre, 1837. It boasts the historical significance of the presence on its stage and in those cold dungeon-like dressing rooms of Laurence Olivier and Vivien Leigh. But a decade later, I was there too, as Snow White. Like many, I started in the annual school play, and year after year, I was increasingly imbued with a sense of wonder, which certain buildings, in combination with their purpose, can impart. Buildings steeped in history matter. I speak often about the impact of that particular building on me during those impressionable years. I'm still not sure what happened to me that night, standing in the wings looking up at the flies. Well, the space above the stage where the scenery hangs, waiting to be released by those mighty old ropes and pulleys which our stagehands manipulate with such ease. I felt something stir within. It was an inexplicable emotion. I'm actually feeling it today. That memory remains vivid, and I still carry that sense of wonder. Less than a decade later, I made my professional debut at Sydney's Palace Theatre in Pitt Street, later demolished to make way for the Hilton Hotel. 5 decades later, I stood on the stage of the Sydney Theatre in Walsh Bay as the Premier Bob Carr formally opened it. That building was saved from demolition by the Premier. It had been a wool bond store overlooking the arrivals of the ships carrying many thousands of an earlier generation of boat people. Might have got a good view of them from here too, actually. Some politicians save buildings. Another reason for celebration today. Sydney's Lord Mayor has preserved a special building and given it a new life. Laurence Olivier stood on stage at Hobart's Theatre Royal in 1948 and said, "In the 111 years it has been played in, it has built up an atmosphere, and the secret to atmosphere is antiquity. Don't let it go." Thanks to the City of Sydney and Clover Moore for not letting this one go. Perhaps Arthur Stace and I have something in common. He had an epiphany in this building as I did in Hobart's Theatre Royal, and the buildings have something in common. Both were built for the voice, for the persuasive voice to ask, sometimes answer, the eternal questions. Who are we? Why are we here? Is there significance to our existence? As social animals, we seek a sense of community, needing to belong, with an innate need to tell and to listen to stories, to gather. And church and theatre both offer these essential services to their communities. And in both, we enter into a kind of contract. A kind of faith is necessary. In theatre, a willingness to suspend disbelief and have faith in what will follow. In church, faith in whatever God it is whose spirit sits within the tabernacle. This tabernacle has already been warmed up as a place for storytelling by many of our theatre community members, and now it's Glenn Terry's turn. Having brilliantly energised the Barlow, he now moves into this beautifully restored space to encourage and enthuse, excite and inspire a community of theatre artists and the community it sits within. As an active participant in Sydney Theatre, I join the rest of my theatre's community in wishing the best to Glenn and his dreams. Like Arthur Stace, this building was saved, born again, this time as the Eternity Playhouse. May it have a long and vivid life. Thank you, Robyn. Please join me in thanking all of our speakers today once again. Thank you to our hard-working Auslan interpreter, Brendan. I'd now like to invite the Lord Mayor to come back and officially open Eternity Playhouse.
Just before I do, I just want to say we've had a lot of sport on this weekend. We've had the finals of the AFL and Rugby League, and we've had helicopters going over the Swarty and a marathon race going on. But also, we've had a wonderful cultural weekend. We had the opening of Art and About on Friday night, where we've brought art out of the galleries and onto the streets and parks, and it's there for you to see and enjoy over the next month. Last night we opened a wonderful festival in Chippendale, celebrating creativity in the arts in Chippendale, called the Beams Festival. And there's a great exhibition going on at Carriage Works this weekend. And of course today we're opening Sydney's newest theatre. So it's wonderful that we have all these things happening in our city. Not just the devotion to sport, but also the devotion to culture. It's wonderful to have you all.
Very exciting moment. Officially unveil the Eternity Playhouse. Here we are. So perhaps the speakers might like to come up with me for a photo.
Now you'll have
Thank you everyone, enjoy.